wow, what an amazing group of people. So we're just going to launch right into it. Bungee jumping, next right. I was driving down the Costa Rican highway, and my friend yelled out to me. Now, I couldn't hear her over the ratty Jeep and the makeshift windows that we had, but I saw the sign too. Bungee jumping, next right. So we veered off the highway, and we went this way and that way, and we followed the signs until we reached an abandoned bridge. Now, we got there at the same time as this other pair of tourists, also clearly looking for some off-the-beaten-path adventure, and we got out of our Jeeps, all of us wearing our matching REI travel gear. And we went up to the abandoned shack, and we signed in, and the four of us walked over to the center of the bridge, where there was this very nice man ready to greet us with a big smile on this heap of equipment at his feet. And he looked at us and he said, "Who wants to go first?" And so all of us looked down at the very, very deep ravine, back at each other, back down at the ravine. Well, finally the other couple said, "Oh, we'll go." So I took a step back. And one by one, I watched them jump off the bridge, going off totally petrified, but then coming up totally elated. And then it was my turn. I don't remember getting rigged up at all. I don't remember the man putting the straps around my ankles. I don't remember him taking those straps and attaching it to the bridge. I don't even remember getting up to the ledge and standing there with nothing to hold on to. All I know is that I couldn't feel my legs, and my heart was pounding so hard that I could see it through my shirt. And he said, "Okay, Tamara, on the count of 3, you're going to jump." I thought, okay, I can remember that. 3. 3, go on 3, go on 3. 1, 2, and I jumped! I could not wait 1 second longer to jump off that bridge. But I have to tell you that once my feet left the railing, I went from fear to complete freedom, and it was awesome. And as I was being hoisted back to the bridge, I promised myself that I would never, ever forget to just let go, to just do it. And I promised myself that I would forget that 1 second, because if I'd waited 1 more second, I would have turned around and gone back onto the bridge. I would not have jumped. 1 second made the whole difference in my life. And I've never regretted the fact that I followed a cardboard sign off of a highway, onto a dirt road, into an abandoned bridge, because it was the best thing I ever did. But that experience really got me thinking, why is 1 second so important? Why does 1 second make all the difference? And I think especially as entrepreneurs, that question really matters to us. And I think it matters because we often wait 1 second too long to do what we know is right, to do that really creative, that really innovative thing that's calling to us, and we go back to what's safe. Because it's so easy. We go to the box, right? We all know that old cliche about the box. But the box is so comfortable and so easy. And we know, and we look in that same box for ideas, even though we know we want to be over here. We want to be doing something different. But we keep looking in the box because we know the answers we're going to get. And that's actually really, really safe. But here's the rub. And I think those of us in the room, from what I heard from the introductions, know this way better than anybody else. The world has shifted. Everything past pre-2008, totally outdated. If we're thinking that way, it's outdated. If we're doing it that way, it's outdated. The world has totally shifted. In fact, let's set the stage. And I want to play a little bit because I think especially these great entrepreneurial minds in the room will understand where I'm coming from. So this is my fun play with technology too, because I like to try to play. Thomas Friedman's book, The World is Flat. He talked about all the left brain work being outsourced. So anybody here have iPhones? Yeah, it's probably most of the room. If you look at apps like OpenTable, right? We don't need a concierge anymore. OpenTable does that. QuickBooks does most of the accounting, so we don't even need an accountant for the basic, everyday things. And what does that mean for us as entrepreneurs? Well, it means that it's an even playing field. It means that you and I can compete. Because all of those things that once only big companies can do, we can all do. Everybody has the same opportunities and the same chances today. It's even out there, and that's actually pretty freaking awesome if you ask me. In The Rise of the Creative Class, Richard Florida talks about how important creativity is, that creativity matters, and how great is that for all of us in the room, because a lot of us talked about being kind of creative souls on the inside, regardless of what we do on an everyday basis. Right, you're laughing a little bit, right? It doesn't feel like that's me on the inside, but you know, things... What's that? Oh, yeah. I'm not the best. In fact, if I did it on the board, it wouldn't be any better. That's really the sad part. But creativity matters, and it matters, and we're seeing that because even the biggest companies like Procter & Gamble are hiring photographers and artists inside their org charts. So people are really, in companies, are starting to understand that creativity is no longer part of the fringe, it's actually part of the mainstream. The other thing I want to bring to life is empathy. Woo! Yeah, how is that for good penmanship? So empathy, and you know, in The Whole New Mind, I don't know if anybody here has read Daniel Pink's book, Whole New Mind, Why Right Brain Knows What Rule the World. He talks a lot about how important the emotional connections are and how important. So he, with the best, most meaningful communication, is the one that's going to win. And one last crazy stat that I want to throw out there that I read this recently and I thought it was so shocking. In the book Cognitive Surplus, it was written in 2010, guess how many hours went into volunteer hours into Wikipedia? Just guess. Come on, there got to be some numbers percolating in your head. 100 million hours. Isn't that crazy? Right, a couple thousand, a couple million, 100 million hours. That's crazy. That means that we actually want, you ready for this great penmanship? Here, I'll try yours, Justin. Let's see. Open, maybe a little better, interaction. Right? Our customers, our clients, our employees, whoever they are, they don't want to be talked to anymore. They want to collaborate and communicate with us. In fact, they're our best creative resource. So we all know this. There's a lot of opportunity out there. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here today. We know that because the ground has shifted and because the world is different, it actually means that we have the opportunity to do things that we've never done before. So things that we thought were not possible, things that we thought were not in our realm, have now actually opened us for us. So I encourage all of us to remember that when we're looking for our next great idea, when we're building that brilliant business, that anything is actually possible today. And things that were done yesterday don't have to be done today. They can be done completely different. So new world, new ideas, that's why we're here today. And that's actually what we're going to focus on today is creativity. And what you're going to see through today's boot camp is a lot of stories. Some of them are personal, some of them are of great creative endeavors that we can learn from. And we're going to do a lot of exercises as well. So be prepared to get up out of your seats and do some interesting stuff and talk to each other as well, which I think this group is pretty used to. Before we delve into that, I want to cover a few truths and myths about creativity. Because I often find that when I start these sessions, people have a very different view of creativity, and sometimes that's the wrong view because there are a lot of myths out there. So I think like one of the myths is, you know, to be creative, you have to be that uber funky, cool designer, not that there's anything wrong with that person, who wears the cool glasses and the hip t-shirt and the funky Pumas, and that person is creative, but I'm not creative. And I don't think that's true at all. In fact, I think it's something we're all born with. It's just a matter of dusting it off and using it a little bit more. So we all have that ability in us. There's no need to do those labels. I think the second myth out there is that it's hard. Being creative is hard. Right? It takes a lot of effort, takes a lot of work. I don't think so. I actually think it's super, super easy. And it's just a matter of exercising it, just like we would exercise our muscles every single day. It's actually really easy. We just have to do it a lot. And I think the third myth out there is that, you know, it's really just not for me. I'm not going to focus on that because it's not what I'm good at. And I don't think it's a matter of good or bad. I think it's a matter of how we use it. And I think that kind of leads to the last myth, which is, well, if it doesn't result in some type of creative output, so call it art, photography, dancing, whatever that is, then it's not a creative endeavor. And I completely, totally, 100% disagree with that. You can tell from my penmanship, I am no artist in any way whatsoever. Don't ask me to do more than a stick figure, and even that is pretty bad. Creativity is about the process, not the product. It's about how we think. So I want to make sure before we delve really far in that we're on the same page about creativity and imagination. Now, imagination wasn't in the title of this. unleash your creativity, power of your creativity, but I think it's important because it's the starting point. And in fact, there's this great book out there I encourage you to read from the Lincoln Center Institute in New York called Imagination First. And it talks about how imagination is the start of all creativity. It's in my opinion, 100% true. So let's just go through these definitions. Let's get some thumbs up and a here so that we can go forward together as a team on this. So creativity, the ability to transcend traditional ideas, rules, patterns, relationships, or the like, and create new, meaningful, new ideas, forms, methods, interpretations, etc., originality, progressiveness, or imagination. I think that greatly applies to the people over here who are talking about trying to connect dots of all these things that you're passionate about. That's where creativity really helps. Imagination, the faculty of imagining or of forming mental images or concepts of what is not actually present to the senses. And I think that last part is really critical because imagination isn't just about playing games, which is how I think the bad rap that it gets. It's really about creating what hasn't yet been created. And hopefully we'll do a little bit of that today as well. Now, in order to do this, let me go back. So why do we want creativity and imagination? Well, let's see. It allows us to find that next business idea that we're so passionate about. Passion is a huge part of creativity. It allows us to connect those dots, to put the things that we love together to create something new. It allows us to do things like create butter on a stick. I thought that was the coolest idea I had ever seen, right? Or how about a baby that helps you clean the floors who's starting to crawl? On a more serious note, how about the creation of life straw, which is near and dear to my heart because water is a very critical need in our globe today. Life straw is a straw. It's a portable water filter. Life straw looked back and said, why do people have to go to water filters? Why do they have to go to where the water source is? Why can't they take it with them and just drink from anything and get clean water? It's a straw that a kid or a woman or anyone can carry around their neck. That's imaginative and that's creative.
Does that take out bacteria?
It does. It takes out 99%. So it's 100% clean when they drink it. So you could put it in a disgusting, dirty river, and you could actually drink. It's amazing. We can all try later if there's something nearby. But Life Straw flipped the paradigm, right? They had this imagination. They had this idea, like, what if we, instead of doing what everybody else does, which is make you go to clean water, what if we brought the clean water to you? And of course, the Post-it note. Who doesn't love the Post-it note? Oops, sorry, seriously. Art Fry came up with a Post-it note in a church pew, letting his mind wander. But here's the best part, I think the lesser known part about his story, because we all know the Post-it note was this great creative invention. When he got back to 3M, the company was like, I don't know that I see the value in this. I'm not so sure, you know, excuse me, where is this gonna go? Excuse me. I just don't get it. Like, I don't get the application of this. So you know what he did? He sent it to all the administrative assistants and had them use it for a couple months, and then he took it away. Isn't that great? To me, that's creativity in action, because he used creative thinking to get to selling, really. But he took it away. Those administrative assistants went into anarchy, uproar. And now we have the Post-it note. And I love that. So let's talk a little bit about what's expected of you today, because I'm going to be up here, I'm going to be sharing a lot of stories. We're going to be doing a lot of exercises together. We're going to be sharing a lot with each other. It's not just going to be me speaking, but I need a few things from you as well. So is that okay? Can I ask you to do a few things? Yeah? Okay. So the first one is I want you to be okay being uncomfortable. It's a huge part of the creative process. Can't get creative unless you're willing to squirm a little bit in your seat. And that's okay. And that squirming may come from someone giving you feedback that you don't really want to hear, giving you an idea that you're like, oh, yuck, but you have to hear it. It may come from your brain going to new places that you haven't gone or connecting new dots, but I want you to be uncomfortable. So if you leave here like that was the easiest thing I've ever done, then I probably didn't do my job. So we're going to practice this. We're going to practice getting uncomfortable. So I want you to whip out a blank piece of paper and a pen. And I want you to draw someone in this room that you don't know. I'm going to give you 3 minutes. All right? The clock is ticking. You have 3 minutes to draw somebody in this room that you do not know. Okay, time. I want you to show now I want you to show the person.
No way.
I love it. Can I keep it?
Sorry. I'm not very good.
Oh, that's good. I love it.
I've got little.
You guys make my lips look bigger than they are. I like it. They're quite small, but I like them.
I'm not at that.
All right, go ahead and sit down. Thank you for playing. That's good. Okay, so was that a little uncomfortable? Here's what I love about this exercise. What do you think up here I heard as you guys, first of all, as you guys started drawing and then when you showed the person? What kind of language do you think I heard people say?
Apologies.
Apologies, like, you're much prettier than that, I think is what you said. I'm so sorry, I'm not an artist. Oh, this isn't very good. Yeah, so, and here's the interesting part. The person receiving it, what's their response typically? Laugh, a little laughter, but also, oh, that's beautiful, oh, that's nice, oh, I like it. So I love this exercise because it shows us how we put these layers of judgment on when we get a little bit uncomfortable in the creative process, and we assume that our work is bad when actually it's really quite good. And it doesn't matter if it's good or not. That's not the point.
That is good.
Yeah, I think this is nicely done. But it doesn't matter if it's good or bad. What matters is that we go through the process. And that's what I want to really instill with everyone today. This is about going through the process of creativity, not worrying about the perfection of the output. The second thing is you're going to pay for yes, but. I'll tell you, let me bring my little mug. I think we all know this intuitively. Yes, but is the killer to all creativity. Negativity is the killer of creativity. Can we all agree to that? Okay. So, as I break you out in teams and as you work together and as we share, if I hear any of you say yes, but, no, because, that won't work, I've tried that and it didn't because, any of those statements, you're putting money in my jar. Because I did not have my coffee this morning and I could use a latte. I will give you one free pass, but after that, I expect money in the jar and I prefer the kind that fold. But we all know this, right? Negativity kills. And I think we all hate that negative Nilly. We hate that person that's in our brainstorm sessions going, no, I don't think so because that will work. Like, what other phrases do we hear from those people? We already tried that. God. You know what, that's a great one because it doesn't sound negative at first, but it really is. I could do it except for, right?
We could never do that.
We could never do, right. That might work for someone else, but not for us. That's not realistic.
I've done that a million times before and I know it won't work.
Right, exactly. And the no is the cleanser there because it shuts down the other person no matter where you're trying to go. And even though there may be new variables, it may be a new time, the market has changed, right?
Well,
I actually, on a random side note, I'll tell you, I did some large work for Johnsonville Sausage recently, so a new innovation pipeline. And we had this one guy that all he could do was tell stories from 20 years prior in every single meeting and why things wouldn't work. It's like, well, that won't work because when we launched that cheese product in 1985, and I'm thinking, and I kept wanting to say, well, but how does that apply to me today? That's great, but tell me how that applies to me today. So no negativity. Now, oh, the money's going in the jar. I think the thing that we forget to do, or we forget how to do, is the yes and conversation. It doesn't always come as naturally as we want it to, so we're going to practice that in the start as well. We're going to have some yes and conversations, because when you surround yourself with those people, creativity becomes really, really easy. And you may not have 100% of the right answers during the conversation, but you get there eventually, and you may go off in tangents and have these really weird things, but that's okay, because you get there occasionally. So we're going to do this in two groups. I need about 6 people to come up, or I guess we'll just do it right here, and you've already raised your hand, so come on up, to play a little game, and then I need the audience to listen and participate. So 6 people to come up. Come on, some of you are right in the sunlight. You've got to want to get up. Thank you, Paul. Sherry, am I saying that right? Okay. Yep. Barbara. Eli. Okay, come on, 2 more. Steve, great. I need 1 more. Oops, sorry. Come on, one of you. Thank you. Thank you so much for participating. They're going to have a yes and conversation, and we're going to do this again. So those of you who didn't quite get your hands up in enough time, we'll get to do it again. We're going to ask them to create something. So give me a new product of any kind, doesn't matter.
Better mousetrap.
A better mousetrap, great. So what we're gonna do is you're gonna move, because movement is a big part of the creative process, constantly moving. You're gonna walk around and you're gonna say, so we need a better mousetrap. And someone's gonna say anything, yes, and, but you have to start with yes, and. Yes, and it has wings, whatever it is, right? Yes, and it's brown. Now if a barber says yes, and it's brown, Peggy can't say, no, but it has dots. You can say yes and, but once that person says it, it's true. So the only thing you can do is add and build. And you can go anywhere you want to go with the yes and conversation. This, by the way, is great if you're doing one-on-one with somebody or in big groups. It is a great way to get the creative process going.
I mean, this conversation is not going to be limited by the
realities of anything?
Realities of technology or...
No. No handcuffs. Just yes and, because you never know where that crazy idea will take you. Okay, better mousetrap. No, you were just going to roam around, walk, and when something pops in your head, you just go, yeah, and it, whatever. And then the next, please do, yes. Okay, ready?
Yes, and it doesn't kill the mouse.
Great, keep it going. Okay, move while you do it, because we all heard it. Yeah, just move.
Moving around.
And just yell, yes, and.
Does it kill the mouse and what?
Yes, and it teleports them to a survival camp for mice.
Yes, and all the mice that are there will interbreed and make new baby mice that will be a creative part of another project.
Yes, and we have to move it far away enough that they can't come back to where they started.
Yes, and it cleans up if they left anything behind.
Ooh.
Yes, and it traps incompetent politicians.
Yes, and trap all sorts of politicians, just teach them.
Yes, and
Yes, and it has to be affordable for anyone to be able to have it.
Now remember, it is, not it has to be, it is. This is set in stone. When you're saying it, it is affordable for everyone.
It is affordable for everyone, so everyone can have access to it.
Yes, and does the dishes.
yes, and all those incompetent politicians get sent off to the same place where those mice go, and they come back as contributing members of society.
Right, a couple more years.
Yes, it's very small. Come back.
And the taxpayers don't have to pay for it.
Because it generates revenue as an ecotourism site.
All right, let's end on that one and give them a huge round of applause for participating. Thank you. That was great. Thank you so much, each of you. That was wonderful. Do you see how that conversation flowed, though? It started with a mousetrap, and it started with a mouse, then it went to politicians. I think this one is let me see if I got it right. It traps mice and teleports them somewhere, along with the politicians, and kind of reprograms them, and it does dishes. That's the coolest mousetrap ever. But doesn't that yes and conversation feel fun? And a lot more creative than the yes but conversation that always happens. So, you know, I kind of have this rule in my life that if I have the yes butters, I stop hanging out with them. We all have moments. It's not to say that we can't sometimes look in the mirror and see that yes butter, but there are some, we all have those people. And I try not to hang out with them as much. I try to hang out with the yes and people because they're gonna drive the conversation forward. It may not always work, it may not be built in reality, but they're the ones. So, you pay for the yes but, you get a lot of encouragement and pats on the back for the yes and. Those of you in the audience, what did you see happen as the group started getting going?
Comfort level. Comfort level increased more as they got into the process. It was the first time for them, and as they got into it, the next time will be a lot easier.
And they put it on themselves a little bit. I didn't give any rules, I just said walk around.
Right. And they also started having more fun.
Yes, fun is a big part of it, isn't it? All right, we're going to try it one more time with a different group of people. So I need 6 different people to come up. And those of you who were up here before, I want you to listen and see what happens so you can see it from that different lens. A big part of creativity is seeing the same thing you've already done, but from a whole different perspective. So that lesson, just to kind of go off on a tangent in life and in work, is really about, okay, if this is what I'm doing, if I were an observer, how would that look? You'll get amazing new insights by doing that. All right, 6 people who did not come up. Okay, those in the audience, what should they be building? A new car. Fantastic. So you know the rules, right? Yes and. Whatever you say is set in stone. So not it should be, it is, whatever it is. No yes buts. Start every sentence with yes and. Say it loud, say it proud, walk and move. It's part of the creative process. So you're building a new car. Move. Have a yes and conversation.
Yes, and it goes 0 to 60 in 3.8 seconds.
Yes. Yes, and it jumps over traffic jams.
Yes, and you will never get a speeding ticket.
Yes, and it's powered by seawater.
Yes, and it's only, it doesn't use, it can't use coal generated electricity, it has to use solar energy.
Yes, and it's 100% recyclable.
Oh.
Yes, and it's manufactured domestically.
Yes, and it's tradable once every 1 year with no extra charge.
Yes, and it doesn't use batteries, it has a new technology.
Yes, and they come with a jacuzzi.
Couple more.
Yes, and it folds up underneath your bed.
Oh my, okay, that was great. Let's end on that one. That was wonderful. Thank you all. Notice the jumps of train and thought. Now I know what's on all your minds as you were driving over here this morning, because that stuff kind of comes up in these interesting exercises. But for the audience, what did you see this time? Now that especially you've been through it once yourself.
Well, they certainly play off of each other.
Yeah, and I think we all know that collaboration, that's why DaVinci and the Vault is so amazing, right? Collaboration is critical, I think, to entrepreneurial success and to creativity.
I think each time it's getting easier to make a bigger leap.
Yes, it is, isn't it? That's a great point. It's easier each time to make a bigger leap. So as it almost becomes, and actually that's great in your world, right? Because you don't do incremental, you do big changes. So instead of doing like these incremental little creative things, builds on it, this group really went leaped and leaped and leaped, and I think part of that is having a little more comfort with the process. Anything else?
Is there too far out?
Maybe, but I guess it always begs the question of, if your antennas are up and you know it's too far out, the next question is, how do I take that and apply it? Because I find that in creativity, and particularly in innovation, when we're dealing with developing new products, that going too far out allows you to come back to the right place. It's a question of, how do I apply that to what I can do later in the process? It's a good question. Yeah, go ahead, Tom.
I found that the people in the group were, I wasn't judging anybody, it was the ideas, and as we were interacting as completely unjudgmental people, it was the idea was bouncing around between us, and it just made it much more freer.
Isn't that nice? It's almost like playing a game. You know, if you ever watch kids play a game, I'm so glad you brought that up, Tom, because when you watch kids play a game, they create their own rules, so reality doesn't really matter, and nobody judges. And they change the rules as they go. It's kind of annoying when you're playing with kids, because you're like, that's not what you said in the beginning. But that is a huge part of creativity, is non-judgmental, and just being in that moment and paying attention and really using that to foster the creative ideas, and then later taking it and filtering it through whatever that filter looks like. Okay, so that's the yes, but. The third thing I need you to do is get rid of the noise. I think we all had brilliant ideas. I've heard some of you talk about some this morning already. The challenge is, if the noise is greater than the idea, we'll never hear the idea. And that noise can come in a lot of different forms. So I want us today to just quiet the noise a little bit, not pay attention to it. Because we all have it. We all walked in the door with it. It could be, I'm not really the creative type. It could be, I don't have a good idea. It could be, I'm afraid of success. Wow, that one's a big one for a lot of people. That noise comes in a lot of different forms. So if you're willing to share, I would love to hear from you what that noise looks like for you as you go down a creative process of any kind. And anyone can share here.
I guess, noise, something like, there's a lot of things that I perceive as interfering with my creative ideas, such as having to have a day job, mortgage obligations, things like that.
I don't have enough time. That's a big one, kind of leaving where you're going from. So I don't have enough time. I've got other things I have to focus on. Sometimes that might be true, but often it's an excuse. I think sometimes from the outside, those excuses look outdated, and we don't see that because we're basing it on things that have happened to us, but that shouldn't necessarily translate into what we're doing tomorrow. And as I said before, I really truly believe that if we're doing anything or thinking in the same way that we were 2008 and past, it's outdated and it doesn't apply today. And today is really about doing those monumental shifts, not incremental change, and about rising above the clutter. And creativity allows us to do that. Imagination allows us to do that, but we have to be willing to let go to get there.
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
If you bought it yourself, you need to contribute to it. You just said
Oh, I did? Okay, I'm going to pull out $1 at the break. Thank you. No, thank you. It's good. See, this is.
No, let's see you put it in there.
All right, fair enough. Hold on. Where's my wallet? Now you guys will know if I carry cash or not. Oh my God, all I have is a 5, so I guess I'm buying myself a latte. Sweet. That's right. Thank you for calling me out. In fact, I think that's hugely important. I think we should do that to each other today. Yeah, go ahead.
Mine is it's not practical. For instance, I'm looking for full-time work right now. Not practical. But the other morning, I just felt called and I went out on a 4-hour walk on the open space trails and I got some amazing photographs of nature and all kinds of flowers. And, but, I feel guilty. Felt guilty about it. It's practical.
Right, and in this, actually, I don't know if any of you have this book. It's a side note, but just to that point, the Imagineering Workout by Disney Imagineers. It's got great exercises in it. Love it. Get it on Amazon or wherever it is. It's called the Imagineering Workout. It's a fantastic book.
By Disney?
Yeah, by Disney. And one of the things it talks about is great ideas come to us when our left brain is preoccupied. And that could be going for a walk, taking photographs. But that guilt, as you mentioned, Barbara, is so hard to get rid of, isn't it? Yeah. Like, it's so easy to get trapped in the, and I do this too. I should be in front of my computer making phone calls. I should be improving my speaking skills. There's a million things we all need to do. And we have to let go of that guilt because I think that wandering is a huge part of the creative process. And in fact, I built this deck of cards called the 7 building blocks. And they're all over the place, and I want each of you actually to grab 2 that speak to you. They're different exercises to unleash your creativity. Lose is one of the building blocks of the 7, and I'll go into detail on all of them later. Lose, L-O-S-E, right? So lose yourself. And part of that is wandering and letting go and having new experiences. That's a big part of the creative process, is doing new things and also just letting go and just going and just doing something that you shouldn't be, shouldn't, in quotes, be doing without the guilt. But I was going to mention this later, but since we're on it, they're all over the place. I want you to look at the ones on your table and just grab 2 that speak to you. These are 2 exercises that you're going to do later. We're also going to use these cards to match up in games and some exercises as well. But since you're sitting over here and don't have any, here you go.
So we take 2?
Yeah, these are the descriptions, so you don't want those 2. Oh. And I can grab you some more. Kelly, do we have any more laying around?
There's a lot on the floor.
Okay, so grab 2. Any other noise before we go on? That fear of judgment is huge, isn't it? Yeah. And I think that drawing exercise taps into that a little bit because we see it as ourselves, creativity. So when we put it out into the world and someone rejects the idea, it's actually very, very hard for us because it's so much. And I encourage us all to think, God, I have a million ideas. If you don't like that one, it's okay, because I have another one. But we got to let go of that judgment because oftentimes, and it's what happened in the drawing exercise, it's our own layer. Right? It's our own noise, and they actually are perfectly okay with it. It's our own. Did you see a hand in the back, or did I dream? Okay, let's keep going. The last thing I want you to do, and this one is critical to me, and especially as entrepreneurs in the room, it's about having our antennas up all the time. Because when we have our antennas up all the time, we're really able to see new things. So as we're going through these stories, as you're sharing examples with each other, as we're doing these exercises, I always want you to ask one question. How does this apply to me? And not in the, how does this apply to me way. I mean like, how can I take what I am hearing and what I am learning, and how do I apply that to me and what I want to do? Whether that's finding something new in life, growing my business, getting new clients, finding that thing I'm passionate about, whatever it is that you're here focusing on, always ask this question. In fact, what I'd like you to do on the back of these are all these questions. They're questions that are going to come up through today. I want you to use this as your note page. And I want you to answer, how does this apply to me? And the other ones will become obvious as we go through them. But I want you to use this as your note paper today, and always ask, how does this apply to me? You're going to be so annoyed by the end because I'm going to say this over and over and over again, but I want you to always be asking that, how does this apply to me? Because when we ask that question, we get to amazing answers. In fact, I think that some of the great entrepreneurs out there do this really, really naturally. And as I've also had a few failed businesses and a few successful businesses along the way. I think I'm on my 7th at this point. And some of them were wildly successful, some of them were complete bombs, and I lost a ton of money. But it all works and gets you to the right place. And I actually, when I started this business, when I realized it wasn't about giving people the fish, because I've done a lot of work in innovation, it was about teaching people to fish, teaching people to be innovative and creative. I realized, because I can give you all the ideas in the world, but that doesn't matter. You need to leave this place today and be able to do it yourself. And as I got deeper into this, I started to wonder, well, what do the great entrepreneurs do? What are their behaviors? Because I don't think that being entrepreneurial is actually a job description. I think it's a mindset and a set of behaviors. And when I look at people who are great entrepreneurs, I don't call them an entrepreneur because they own a small business or because they work out of their house and, in their pajamas on Skype 24/7, although it's a great perk. I call them entrepreneurs because they have this really creative mindset. I think that entrepreneur and mindset and creativity, go hand in hand. So I wanted to bring 3 to the table today. There's a lot of them that I've uncovered over the years. But these are 3 that when I look at people like Johnny Earl of Johnny Cupcakes, who I'll go into later if you haven't heard of him, like Tony Hsieh of Zappos, when I look at those people, I think, oh, what are they doing every single day that the rest of us should be doing more of? Because they have these great behaviors and these great mindsets that get them to creative places innately. So there were 3 I wanted to cover in this first hour. So strive to be naive. Steve Jobs, I actually had insomnia one night, and I was up late watching one of his interviews about Pixar. And one of the things that he credits to Pixar's success, and I don't know if you guys knew this, but Pixar had 7 blockbuster hits in a row, which is for movies, for production, totally unheard of, completely unheard of. Nobody ever does it. People usually have that one-hit wonder and then they bomb a couple times and then they come back. And it started with Toy Story, moved on to Cars, Monsters, Inc., The Incredibles. Can you tell I have young boys and the type of movies that I watch? But really, Pixar is an amazing story because they've been able to keep their creativity and be able to keep what he calls their naiveness. And it's funny to hear Steve Jobs say, my colleagues and I bring naive eyes to the table. Because I'm thinking, oh my God, really? Like, you've done it all. How can you possibly be naive? But he talks about they worked really hard in their organization to strive to be naive. Like, it is something everybody is working towards. And they do it in very simple ways, like not assuming that what worked in the past is going to work today. Because that's the flip, actually, to what you were saying earlier, which is just because it worked once doesn't mean you shouldn't question, will this work again? Because it may, but it also may not. And it just takes your thinking to new places. They also don't assume that because it didn't work in the past that it will work today, right? Because you never know. You got to flip that thinking to get naive. Constantly, his other point was constantly asking, but why not? So when someone says to you, you know what, Ed, that doesn't work because we've tried that a million times, so we're not going to do that today. Normally, what's the response? Okay, yeah, I see your point. Oh, you're right. Shrug your shoulders, like, damn. All right. But what if the response is, why not? And then why not again? And then why not one more time? And go down that rabbit hole. It may not be the exact solution, but it'll take you to new places. So striving to be naive is a huge part of the entrepreneurial mindset and a huge behavior that we can all embody on every single day. Just catch yourself, remind yourself just to always ask, but why not? But why not? I don't understand, why not? And just, and that's how a 6-year-old would respond when you say to them, honey, the TV doesn't work. Well, why not? Because the electricity's out. Well, why? Like, it just keeps going and going. Have you ever been in one of those vicious cycles of conversations? By the end, you're like, because I said so. But why not is a really powerful question, and it's a huge part of striving to be naive. The other one is, I want you to treat ideas like popcorn. Does anybody here have the shiny ball syndrome? Does anybody know what I'm talking about or just think I'm perverted? Yeah, raise your hand if you have the shiny ball syndrome. Yeah, okay, let me tell you what it is. And I suffer from this greatly because I have a million ideas. So I'm working on this idea, but then this idea flashes in front of me and I'm like, oh, forget that idea. I'm going over here. And then, oh my God, wait, there's one over there and I'm going over there. And I can't stop myself because every time a shiny ball gets in front of me, I have to follow it. And it's horrible because then I never get anything done. And it's a huge gift and a burden all at the same time. So a couple years ago in my business, I said, all right, Tamara, this is ridiculous. You have got to focus. You are going to focus, you are going to do, you are going to get it done. No more ideas, no more. So about 4 months into this no idea thing that I was trying, I was sitting down at my desk and I needed an idea desperately. Like I needed a good marketing idea desperately, and I could not for the life of me come up with one. And I couldn't figure out why. I'm like, what's wrong with me? I'm the idea person. Like I cannot come up with anything. But I realized something. I'd shut my brain down. I had stopped letting my brain come up with ideas. And what did I do? I told my brain, you know what, Beth? You don't need ideas, so don't worry about them. Don't worry about that part because that's going away. And my brain believed me. So when I needed ideas, they didn't come. So I flipped it. I said, you know what? I'm going to keep a popcorn bucket on my desk because what I now realize is that my brain needs to know that I love ideas. It doesn't mean I have to act on every idea, but it needs to know that I love ideas so that when I need them, it's there for me. And it's like popcorn, like they just keep coming and coming and coming. And it clouds everything, and you'll be driving and you get an idea, and you're at your desk, you get an idea, you're in the shower, you get an idea. And most of the time, what do? We go, oh yeah, and we move on, because it doesn't apply to us in some way or another. It doesn't fit into what we're thinking about in that day. But what if we wrote every idea on a Post-it note, and we just put it in a popcorn bucket on our desk? Doesn't mean we have to act on it. I don't care how crazy the idea is, how outlandish, how not relevant to you it is. Every idea that we get needs to go in the bucket. And that's something that great entrepreneurs are really good at. They recognize that the brain needs acknowledgement for its ideas. I'll give you one that I put in here recently that's funny. So, you know, this winter's been a little crazy, right? And I have a 4Runner, which is normally pretty good about getting on the snow. But I was spinning my wheels, and I had just come from yoga, and I thought, and yoga mats now, I do this hot yoga, so the yoga mats are kind of sticky. So I thought, what if there's a yoga mat for cars in the winter, and you just stick that yoga mat under the tire, and it allows me to get out. Now, I'm never going to do that idea. It's not in any interest of any field that I have, but I put the idea in the bucket.
I just bought one of those.
Oh, well, somebody had the, see? There goes my big chance. Darn it. That's exactly right. And you know, I don't judge the ideas, I just put them in there. Whether it's good, silly, ridiculous, that doesn't matter. What matters is we tell our brains, you know what? It's okay to be like popcorn. It's okay to have a million ideas because we're going to put them all in the bucket. So get a popcorn bucket, get a mug, get whatever works for you, or a folder of ideas, whatever. But give yourself the chance to give your brain that check mark that it's okay to have a million different ideas, because when you need that one idea, your brain's ready to go. It's like, oh yeah, let's do this. I'm so good at ideas. I had another one for a cozy for my cup. I've had ones for extendable arms, for strollers. I mean, you name it, it is in that bucket. And I like to go back later and look at them because it's kind of fun to like, what was I thinking there? Huh, oh, that one actually might work. So popcorn of ideas. Treat ideas like popcorn. Learn in motion. In fact, Tom, I heard you say this earlier about going to the beauty show to test your product. Great entrepreneurs and the great entrepreneur behavior is learning in motion, not waiting for things to be perfect before they get out the door. And I've done a lot of expos actually, and I've seen a lot of other entrepreneurs, you know, the apples from Orange Glow. I always see them trying out new products now in obviously all different fields because they sold their business. But get out there and learn in motion. It's one of the great things of great entrepreneurs. You know, share the ideas with other people. Don't hold it in. If you've got a great thing going, build a prototype out of egg cartons. It doesn't matter what it's out of. But learning in motion is a big, big shift than learning in the conference room. And perfection is the enemy of creativity. We know that, right? We know that trying to get to perfection is not possible. And what I've found along the way is that our customers are willing to take the journey with us. Apple's a great example of that. I mean, how many glitches does every product they have come out with? But we don't care. We still go the journey with them because we love what they're about and we love what they're doing. But that's how they get out there.
They can afford to do it.
And they can afford to do it. But there are little ways. Oh, money in the jar, I think. Oh, nice call. You do owe me. Here, go ahead. You can just pass that back for me, Ed. That would be great. Thank you. I'm hoping not to have too much money by the end, but we might go out to lunch after this. But learning in motion.
That's what I'm going to give you.
Oh.
I got a $1 coin last night.
Oh.
So it's
I feel like that's lucky. Thank you.
That's a
Isn't that lucky in some way or something?
Well, it'll help remind me to stop.
Yes. No yes buts. They do have the money.
And I only have one left.
But the flip side to that is all the, a lot of companies that go out there and they throw millions. I've seen this in I've worked with Procter & Gamble and General Mills and these guys, and I see it a million times. We do focus group after focus group after focus group after focus group. Then we get into a conference room and we argue and we argue and we argue, and it doesn't really matter what we're arguing about. At that point, the product needs to get out there. It needs to be in the hands. We need to kind of move and grow and learn as we go. And people like Tony Hsieh, who built Zappos, or any one of these entrepreneurs, and you guys probably have a few that you've learned from along the years too. What's the one thing they do? It's like they're always at a green light. They just keep moving and keep moving. And if we embrace that mindset and that behavior in ourselves, that creativity will flourish, because part of that green light, I call them green light entrepreneurs, because I think that instead of waiting for every green light, right, to be green and then to go across town, they just go, and if it's red, they'll just turn right and find the next green light. So the route is often circuitous, but they're learning as they go. And it's so powerful, because when we get out there, our customers, our friends, the people in this room, they're our creative collaboration partners. So if we get out there and we test things and we try things and we learn and we say, you know what, that didn't work, but that's okay, because I'm just going to try something else. And just to give you a personal example, I launched this line of t-shirts called Creativities, and it's all about wearing your creativity on your sleeve, because I wanted creativity to be accessible and universal. So what's more universal than a t-shirt, right? And each t-shirt has a different exercise on it in a visual form. And they're great. But when I launched them, I thought, I got to get out there. I got to see, I love them, but do other people love them, right? I mean, me in my little office with the people who are surrounding me love them, but I don't know what other people think. I don't even know why people would buy them. So for $800, I rented a kiosk at Cherry Creek Mall over the Arts Festival weekend. Just $800. Not the biggest amount of money in the world, not the smallest, but not the biggest. And I didn't sell a ton, but what I got was awesome feedback on what was working, what wasn't working, how I should be selling them, how I should be talking about them. Creativities, the name came from a customer who's like, they're Creativities. I was like, oh, they are. I was talking about creative apparel, blah, 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 which on paper looked great. But when I got out there, they are the ones that helped me figure that out. So learning in motion is really important to kind of getting that entrepreneurial movement going in yourself. Yeah, go ahead.
Can you go back to the three that you just
put
on the list? And I just want to editorialize that.
Yeah.
This is what Twitter is kind of compared to me. I know there's a lot of talk about the usefulness of Twitter, but all those points kind of apply.
The strive to be naive, treat ideas, learn emotion.
So when I just randomly have a thought, I'll just tweet it. I'm not really talking to anybody, it's just something that I'm thinking, and I'm like, that's the way I write things down. And then when I'm just kind of in that mode where I just want to take things in, I'm just randomly looking at what are people talking about and what is driving the conversation. And to me, it's all that. And so that's why I always encourage people that just have this idea that it's, oh, I'm out to lunch and I'm having a hamburger. Like, how stupid is Twitter? But if you really embrace it from this standpoint, it's extremely powerful.
That is a great lens and a great how-to, I think, for these. Twitter, Facebook, like all of those social media tools. And Twitter is great because you have to be pretty concise, right? Which makes it so interesting. And you can do. Who here's on Twitter? Okay, I encourage everyone to get on Twitter, because I think I've actually had some of my best ideas because of feeds that I've paid attention to or interaction that I've had. In fact, there's a guy in Nova Scotia who I've become good friends with from Twitter, who I never would have met. I never would have been able to tap his brain, but now we connect over Skype. Did you, Tom?
I just wanted to share that I had the idea for the olive oil sprayer for a long time, but I didn't have the way to actually make it happen. And I was in Home Depot one day, and there was this jar with this little pump thing next to it, and I looked at it, and it had this pump inside. It was exactly right, and I took it, and I bought it and brought it home and made a prototype and called the company and asked them if they could change the nozzle so it sprayed oil, and we changed a bunch of things about it. But then I made a prototype in like no time at all and brought it over to my friend's house and showed it to his wife Suzanne, and she goes, oh my God, I have one of those. She reached out into the sink and she pulled out a crappy little spray bottle and she had olive oil in it, and she said, I really want one of these. My thing actually worked, and hers kind of came out in the stream. So And it just gave me so much energy, you know,
To be able to show it to people.
yeah, and because a lot of times I would hide ideas, oh, I don't want anybody to steal my ideas. So by sharing this idea and expressing it to someone and her giving me such positive feedback, it totally empowered me.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because learning in motion is really about energy and momentum as much as it is about the feedback and the collaboration. Now, I know I'm out of time, so because it's creativity and we're coming back in 15 minutes, I want you to do something a little different over the break. Instead of checking your BlackBerries and your iPhones, because it's Saturday and that big deal is not coming in today, sorry, it's coming in Monday. But what I'd like you to do is discover something new about someone else. I want you to talk to someone you don't know and find out what their idea is or what their passion is. Then we're going to come back and share. So talk to someone you don't know in this room and learn whatever it is their big idea or their big passion is, and then come back in 15 minutes.